everybody who is watching and listening to us right now. We are doing another episode of Zhannacast, Dream Big with Zhanna, inspiring you to reignite, refire, and refuel your life. And today we have a very special guest. It's a dear friend of mine, and she's an amazing professional and a brilliant individual. It's Dr. Ruby Braye. Let me give you just heads up about what she is all about and who she is. And this is apart from her official bio. And trust me, it's much more than you will hear. Ruby Braye, PhD, is president and CEO of the Woolly Turtle Corporation. Having been a university professor for 16 years, specializing in leadership and organizational performance, Dr. Braye created the Business Breakthrough Program and works with a select group of leaders from across the United States each year, supporting them to double, quintuple, and 10x their businesses. So that's the official piece of it. And on a personal note, I can say that Ruby, it's been my pleasure to have you in my life. And you are absolutely brilliant in any possible sense I can imagine. Spiritually, personally, business wise, you name it. So today, well, welcome to the show. And
Thank you.
we're gonna be talking about how really to make the most out of your degree into this fast changing economy and fast changing world, and you're the expert in that. So can you tell us a little bit about why you became so passionate specifically to help the graduate students to actually finish their PhD?
Well, I will tell you, when I started my degree, more than 20 years ago, I knew that horses that do well because of jockeys. And I knew that I would need a mentor who was really knowledgeable, who was invested in me, and someone who would be able to guide my process. And so I sought a mentor who provided those three things. Since my own graduation, I have endeavored to be a person who behaves in those ways. Someone who's knowledgeable, someone who's committed to researchers, and someone who understands process well enough to be able to help researchers. And as a result, have been able to help more than 80. In fact, just this past weekend, we had another successful graduate, and I am so excited. I also work with people who are not necessarily those I mentor personally. And we had another graduate who I assisted, even though I did mentor personally, who also graduated. So I know that the processes work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what do you think stops them in the first place? Like once they, in two questions. What stops them once they bump against any challenges? And what are the challenges for them? Like, why is it such a problem for them to graduate once they start the process? That's question number one. And question number two, how do you think, what's the role of autonomy? If they face this challenges, is it like what would you recommend to stay completely like isolate yourself from
No,
no,
no.
okay, what's the
I think autonomy is important because even when you know statistically that only one in three people will finish a doctoral program, it's important to have confidence in yourself that one, you can do it, two, that you will get the help that you need, and three, that you will persist. I asked researchers just today to give me five things that they believed made a significant difference in their success. And five that were at the top was to have clarity about the goal, to not be afraid, to really persist once started, to make sure that there was effective mentoring, and to be willing to do the things that were instructed to do.
mm-hmm.
And my sense that when one can get past the fear, will listen to effective guidance and take the time to do the things that are detailed in the instructions, you cannot help but succeed. The same is
Awesome.
true in business. Many times we set out in business wanting to succeed and find that one, we lack information, two, there's not enough time, not enough money, or we have not accurately targeted our market. And it's remarkable the kinds of results that happen. And
Mhm.
so, to be successful, it's really important to have a measure of clarity around a number of things that are really important. Really important within an organization, really important related to clients, things that are really important related to the product or service that's being offered.
Hmm. Ruby, what is success
Yes,
for you? And also, like, do you consider yourself successful? Oh, that would be the second question.
I absolutely consider myself successful. And success is often measured based on income or based on the amount of money that you have. I believe success is much more than that. I remember hearing years ago that success is what you have overcome to get to where you are. And many times we don't give credit to people who have been very successful. They may not have a lot of money, but they
Mhm.
have achieved goals that most people would not have tackled. And if they tackled them, were unable to simply achieve them. So, success, it is important to be able to measure success based on your terms, not just the terms that the world will often hold up as the measure of success.
Mhm, mhm. So, what kind of goals did you set for yourself, and what is your grand vision for yourself, and what you're doing in like what's the passion behind that?
I grew up on a dirt street in Montgomery, Alabama, in the middle of the civil rights movement. And at that time, there were lots of people who believed that little black children could not learn, and that there were lots of stereotypes associated with black people that relegated many of us to positions that were considered inferior positions. And so, for most of my life, I have purposed never to fit any of those descriptions, to be able to, one, read and understand. Two, to be able to clearly and critically think about issues. Three, to be able to, of the options that are available, choose the one that makes the most sense to me. Four, to be able to make a decision. And once I have made a decision, to take action. Now, I will tell you, taking action is guided by something that's more than just a sense of this is the time to move. My belief is that our inner wisdom, our intuition has a way of guiding us to be able to take action at the perfect time, not just action for action's sake. And my sense is when we deeply listen to that inner wisdom, the timing may not be consistent with what other people would believe would
Is
be
the
an
right time?
appropriate time or the right time, but it will be a time that will turn out to be the perfect time for you.
Hmm. How do you
And
access it, intuition? Any
I've
tips?
learned that absolutely. I've learned to slow down. I'm one of those people who has lots of achievement. And in the past, I can remember somebody saying that you will almost be run down by her turning around corners or going around corners because I was moving so fast. And I've learned to slow down, and out of that slowing down, to rely less and less on what I know to be just book learning, and to
Hmm.
listen more and more to that inner voice that speaks to me about this is the time, go here, go there, contact this person. And when I've done that, I've been amazed at the results. Often there has been such fidelity that I know that the things could never have been achieved had I simply been relying on my mind, as opposed to the inner wisdom that comes from soul and heart.
Hmm. So don't you think this too would be because you're talking about intuition, but also about the process of actually completing the degree. right? So
Yes,
it's like, how do you combine both? And I think the magic, don't you think the magic comes from utilizing both the practical
absolutely.
side? Yeah, because you
Absolutely. But there may be times when you don't know how to do things, and you will have somebody simply show up out of nowhere who understands clearly enough to be able to explain it in terms that can be understood. So while I have absolute belief that the mind is a great place to store lots of information, it's like a skill repository. If I'm not a betting person, but if I had to bet on my intuition, knowing the exact time and place and way to do something, as opposed to my mind, I would bet on my intuition every time. And I have seen reliance on intuition prove to be of great value more than once. The other
Mhm.
thing is that I believe that it's important to have just great faith enough to keep going when things are just dim and dark. It's almost as though if you can keep walking or keep running when you would like to quit, it is remarkable the results that one will come to experience as a result of inconquerable, insurmountable faith. Faith
Have you?
that just says it doesn't matter what comes, we know that we can address it.
Amazing. Have you ever been afraid yourself?
Absolutely. I think anybody who says they've never been afraid is someone who will lie.
What can you give an example, and what did you do with that? Did it stop you from achieving what you were about to achieve with that?
Well, there's fear and then there's fear. I believe that fear has a way of helping us stay safe by guiding us at times when we would take risk that would cost us our lives. And I believe that there is fear that keeps us from doing things that will allow us to move forward. Now, in my lifetime, I've learned to distinguish between the two. I ask myself a simple question when I am feeling that there is something that I probably should not do, or I experience a fear regarding something. I ask, is this the best thing that I can do for me and for others? And if my inner wisdom is unsettled around something, then I know it's probably something I should not do. I should acknowledge that the fear is a warning intended to protect and help me, not to keep me from being able to achieve something that would be wonderful and a blessing for me and likely a blessing for others.
Mhm, mhm. Do
That's how
you,
I distinguish between the two.
but to thank you. Any role models that you follow? Like,
I have one role model, and that's my mother. Absolutely amazing. She raised 8 children by herself without public assistance, and her approach was to give a lot and to be thankful all of the time. And while she was accepting of circumstances, because we lived during the civil rights movement, there were things that she believed were just absolutely wrong. And so when schools were integrated, for many young children, it was a great risk to go to work and leave children to get to school on their own, trusting that they would not be harmed by those who did not want to see schools integrated. But that was a risk that she took, believing that it would make a difference in our lives and that God would just take care of us. And God did. That's an example of assessing risk and making a decision that moving forward as opposed to stepping back would be the best decision.
mhm, mhm. Ruby, do you, so in the work that you do, because I know you are teaching, so you're helping the students to graduate, you are also
Yes.
working with leaders. Can you tell us
Absolutely.
more about that? Because you speak to the university. Who do you speak in front of? Is it the university communities? Who are these people?
For many years, I have served on a number of boards. I've worked with National Science Foundation reviewing proposals for work that would improve education and businesses. I
Hmm.
have supported leaders in both government as well as for profit organizations. And these were leaders who were wanting to improve the culture in the organization and the performance of the organization so that we had an opportunity to go in and complete assessments with the people and analysis of the workplace to make sure that all of the components that needed to be in place were there. I've also specialized in leadership, specifically servant leadership. And the beauty of servant leadership is that it starts with the self, having deep awareness of yourself and being honest and willing to assess integrity, especially. Then care for other people, not to be so greedy and consumed with just getting ahead for self that we do it at the expense of hurting other people and
Hmm.
creating chaos and confusion in the lives of others. And then to have a willingness to really learn whatever it is that we are called to do, so that when we offer a product or a service, we don't do it in such a way that it will hurt people. And when there are problems, we quickly address the problems. I look at Ford right now with the issue with the fumes that were causing people to go to sleep and have accidents and how long it took them to make a decision. I think about them in the Pinto years ago, where the tank was placed in the wrong place, and as a result, people lost their lives.
Mm.
This is integrity where leaders get to assess one, what they are willing to give up to stand for right. Two, to be able to protect people, both employees as well as customers. Three, to do jobs that are absolutely amazing. And then to be good stewards when it comes to the environment, to not pollute the water, not pollute the air. I look at fracking right now. I think about Flint, Michigan. I think about the redwoods where, but for the protections for these majestic creatures, I think we would have
Oh, you froze a little bit.
foresight
Hmm.
to protect them.
Hmm. Hmm. What is
When I think about our national parks now, I'm always so excited to see the beauty that was preserved because of the foresight of leaders.
awesome? Wonderful. What is that change for you that you are creating in the world? You know, from Gandhi's, like you be the change you want to see in the world. So what is the change that you are creating with your life and with the work that
The
you do?
change that I'm creating represents a contribution in the lives of the leaders I serve, the students and researchers I work with. I have purposed as best I am able to give my word. And when I give my word, to stand by that word, to be committed to do exactly what I say I am going to do, and to do it in such a way that it honors those who are served by the actions that I offer and contribute.
Hmm.
I also believe it's important to model the way. I've had many people say that there are things that they saw me say, that they heard me say, or saw me do. And as a result, they were willing and moved to make a change in their lives. And for me, that is heartwarming because our contribution is not just the product or the service. Our contribution is who we get to be in the world, what we say, what we do.
Hmm. Amazing. You are amazing. I experienced you in action and I changed some of the things in my life based on our conversations, multiple conversations with you. So I really,
Thank
really
you.
thank you for that. So, so many questions that pop up. First of all, when you are going back to the students, when you work with them, do you do this work one-on-one or is it a group work that you do? so that people out there who need your services understand the nature of the work that you do? How do you
I
help
do
them
both.
individually? Both.
I do both. I
Oh,
have learned that it is possible to work one on one to address specific issues that individuals have because I'm a coach. I've also learned that when I work with groups of people, that many times those in the group learn more and learn faster because of the sharing that takes place among them. I don't know everything, and individuals in the group don't know everything, but together we all know more. It reminds me of the saying, the sum of the part, no, oh, let me make sure I get this right.
that's
The sum of
okay.
the parts is greater than the whole, I think is how it's said. That if you take
Mm-hmm.
all of the parts and put them together, you will have more than if you simply took the unit by itself. And so I
I see.
find I love working in groups because when everybody listens, everybody will be able to contribute something that's rich, and everybody will take away something that they needed that perhaps just working with the coach individually they might not have received.
I agree 100%. Being both, on the receiving and on the giving end, also as a coach, it's amazing how the group dynamic changes everything. Yes, and then it gives you more. If you were to recommend, first of all, you are the author. You have books that you've written, and I know there are two. Can you tell us more about the books? What are the
Yes,
books
I've
about?
I've co-authored two books, and the one book was written where the contribution focused on autonomy. And autonomy has to do with not just following the herd. Right now, we see groups of people and individuals in our nation who are following those who don't necessarily have the good of all people in mind, but just the good of a select few or a small group. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important to be willing to assess the
Mm-hmm.
degree to which the group that you follow, the beliefs that you hold, are such that they are good for all people. And if they aren't, to be open to change. The other book has to do with work that we did in Africa, where we had gone to provide support that was HR and HR primarily oriented. And it was to help organizations do a better job of being present for employees. And the outcomes were such that for the schools, the hospitals, the for profit organizations, the nonprofit organizations set up after the genocide in Rwanda, it was intended to help leaders be really aware of the difference that they are able to make in those organizations. And the principles that were used are principles around business success that apply to many of our organizations here in the US. They are principles that leaders are able to use to do a great job of being good for themselves, good for the people in their organizations and their clients, and being able to ensure that the products and services are the best quality that they are able to offer and never at the expense of the environment.
Amazing. So where can we find the books? It's on your website, right?
Yes,
Is it?
on www.woollyturtle.com. And if you send me an email or reach out to me, I will provide information concerning these books that are filled with amazing material by not just me, but other leaders as well. Well known
Mm,
leaders like Brian Tracy and Dr. Warren Bennis, or some of the other articles,
of course.
authors who have contributed.
Of course. Now, tell us more about the name of your website because it's www.wuli and then the word turtle. So WULI and then turtle, but that means something, right? So what does it mean?
Absolutely. Many years ago, I read a book by a fellow named Gary Zukav that was called The Dancing Woolly Masters. And the book for me spoke to that place inside of all of us that desires change, and to change not just where you're growing in any direction, but where you're growing with mastery. The phrase Wuli is a Chinese phrase that means patterns of organic energy, to be able to take our dreams and visions and convert them to reality. And when I work with clients, I often ask, what is it that you see for your life? What is it that you have heard that matter to you in such a way that you're willing to step forward and take action to achieve those dreams and visions? Because as a coach, my job is to be an accountable partner as you work to achieve those goals. The turtle is the oldest creature, living creature, in many cultures, in Native American culture, in many Asian cultures. And there's a symbol of the earth having been created on the back of a turtle. That
Mm-hmm.
image has turtles stacked up all the way from the center of the earth. And so, because I know that something like 95% of all the businesses that start fail within the first year, when I started Woolly Turtle back in 2000, my commitment was to make sure that I'd be around for the long haul, that I'd be able to contribute services and offer products to people that would be contributions that would make a substantial and significant change that could be used to help them make a change in their lives. And so I'm now in my 17th year and have had not just clients come back to me to respond about the change in their lives, but their family members and employees in their organizations. I am in Washington this week, and before I left Wilmington, I had gone to the hospital, and I used to do training for our county. And there was a man who had been an employee, who is an employee for the county, who came over to me and said, "You know, Dr. Braye, I am still working, and I have remembered some of those things that you taught us that I have used. And as a result, I have just had an amazing career, and I'm almost ready to retire." So
Awesome.
the comfort for me is knowing that, unlike books and research that sits on shelves collecting dust, the
Mm-hmm.
principles that are taught and the practices that people are encouraged to use are
Mm-hmm.
those that have helped people dramatically alter the quality of their lives, which means improved relationships in families, in communities, and ultimately in the world. We have no idea where we'll end up.
Wow, that's amazing, Ruby. Thank you so much. We have a section when I'm always asking the guests to provide one jam, and I call it. You know how we have the image. This is like for the mainstream of the toolbox, but
Yes.
instead, since we're women, it's the treasure chest. Like, what is this one jam that we can put in our treasure chest around the topic for today, like how to make the most out of your degree in this fast changing world. If you could share one gem, what would that be? There's a
The
lot.
one
I understand.
thing is integrity. Let your words stand for something, for yourself, for others, and in the workplace and marketplace. When you give your word, don't give your word unless you are committed to doing it. And you will do it unless you're dead.
Oh my gosh, that was really really beautiful. That's what makes you successful. I know everything you say, it's gonna be
Thank you.
done. And
Thank you.
the very very bonus question for everybody who is listening: if you were to pick one book for your best friend, what would that be?
A book that I have so enjoyed is by no, Jack London's collection.
Jack London's collection.
Jack London's collection, his works are filled with, one, an understanding of individuals, an understanding of what it takes to persist through all kinds of difficulty, filled with empathy and compassion and commitment to caring for the environment and for animals. I've grown to love his work, and it has inspired me at times when I thought, this is a situation that feels hopeless. I have been filled with hope as a result of reading much of this man's work.
Amazing. Ruby, thank you so much for being on.
You are
Uh,
welcome.
yeah, Dream Big with Zhanna, inspiring you to reignite, refire, and refuel your life. And you
Thank
guys
you.
who are watching and who are listening to us, if you loved what Ruby was saying, and if you would like to book her as a speaker for your organization, for your business, or you want to explore more of her work or get one of the books, here is how you can get in contact with her. You go to www.woollyturtle.com. Now we know the whole story. And we'll put it
Thank
in
you
the
so
comments.
much, Shauna. I've so enjoyed. The one thing that I would add is have good humor and have fun. Be willing to laugh at yourself from time to time and go balance all that work with some fun. Have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Ruby. Bye.
Bye, Shauna.
Bye. Mm.